great stuff. We're going to move on to, I think there's been a lot of comment about talent and how we develop talent. Right? Some of the figures that people have shown around the senior teams and the ageing population of senior teams and what opportunities that gives us, but also what challenges it does. I'd like to welcome Tilly from South Africa to talk to us about the talent strategy and how that works in the organisational strategy. Tilly.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Keith and I were talking earlier on, and I was saying to him, Keith, you know what? It feels like I'm doing the graveyard shift. Because in essence, it is the last presentation for the day before we depart. And of course, I know at this point in time, some people have already seen the lunch being set outside, and I'm sure the tummies are starting to complain a bit. So it's quite a challenging stop. So how are we going to change that? So I'm going to ask all of you to stand up. And we are going to do a performance. Those that were in South Africa last year will tell you that in South Africa, we sing when we're happy, we sing when we are challenged, we sing when we are tired. So we are going to do that. So you're going to join me. I'm sure some of you know the song, have heard about it. It's sung by a world-renowned artist, Miriam Makeba, during the days of apartheid. She went to exile in America, so I'm not sure how many of you have heard of it. Any? Okay. It's called the Click Song. Click, 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 click. There are different challenges in South Africa is that we've got 11 different languages, and they all have different clicks. So the Click Song is known for its many, many clicks. So we're just going to do the chorus, and you're going to be the dancers of this performance. The guys that went to South Africa will tell you we were dancing all the time. Okay. So we're just doing the chorus. You are now the dancers. We can bear the 20 minutes, or 30 minutes or so. Sanibonani, as we say in my native language, it's a very powerful statement because it says, I recognize you as a human being. So when we say in Zulu, Sanibonani, we are not just simply saying hello, we are saying, I recognize you, I acknowledge you as a fellow human being. So from a warm South Africa, good afternoon to all of you. It's such a pleasure to be here. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how we've taken our talent strategy and tried to align it with the business strategy. And making sure that human resources is not just something that sits on the side, it's part of the business, it's integrated into the business. Okay, just a bit of a background. We've got 7 divisions, so 6 distribution centers, as well as a central office. The challenge that we've got is that all these divisions are totally decentralized, each run by a managing director with a divisional executive board. So as a result of that, there are so many different ways of doing things. So there isn't one thing that we all do. So there isn't an instruction that comes from central office to say this is how we will do things. So when we were looking at our strategy, we have to be very careful and be very sensitive to the fact that you've got 7 established divisions, and they are all very proud of what they've achieved. They're very proud of what they've put in place. And the last thing we needed to do as central office was to say, continue or stop what you've started. We needed them to feel that they were part of this process rather than being isolated by central office. So we have to take those pockets of excellence and build on them, rather than starting from the beginning or discarding things. So we wanted a situation where each division in this big integrated strategy could still see something or an element that came from that division and feel that sense of ownership. All right. Something that I'm sure all of you will agree here is that when it comes to the talent issue, we believe that as the HR professionals, it is the line's responsibility, of course with our support, to drive talent. But sadly, the opposite is that only 19% of the business leaders believe in this. So in essence, what this is telling us is that line managers are expecting the talent process to happen by miracle. They don't want to be party to it. They kind of expect HR to be the side coach that is getting everything done, but in reality, it doesn't work. So the biggest challenge for us is to make sure that the line managers understand the importance that they play in the talent strategy process. Right, when we were looking at our talent strategy, we wanted something that was holistic, that didn't focus just on the individual, that also focused on the team, because that's where the individual operates, that also took into account what the company objectives were, or where we were heading as the organization. Otherwise, if it didn't, it was going to run the risk of being dismissed by line managers. So it had to talk to business objectives. It had to talk to individual objectives, because people come to businesses with their own aspirations. So how do we take those individual aspirations and marry them with the business and team objectives? And of course, part of what we were trying to also do in this process was to make sure that our values were integrated into the process. Our values in South Africa are passion, family, and entrepreneurship. And making sure that we also talk to the intangibles, because individuals, as we know, are complex. You know, it was things like trust. How do we make sure that, there is motivation, there is commitment? Also looking at the management or the leadership side in terms of how do we make sure that the culture is conducive? Because so many times people go on an intervention and they are so hyped up after the course, but when they go back to the workplace is not ready for them. And they are flying here on cloud 9 and everyone is like saying, what is wrong with you? Come down here, we are at this level. So it was making sure that we create an enabling environment that was going to make it easy for people to thrive. Just a quote that I thought is relevant is that Dale Carnegie is saying companies with engaged employees outperform their competitors by up to 202%. And that is true. So how do we make sure that our staff are engaged? Like Mary was showing her picture, people that don't want to be jumping out and leaving us. People that are so fired up, that belly in their buttons, they just want to keep on going. You can't stop them. They are so unstoppable. And that was the challenge that we're facing, to say, how do we make sure that we've got engaged people? All right, just in terms of our strategy, really making sure that the leadership edge in a changing global workplace is aligned to the best practice of the organization and also of the world. You speak to anyone worldwide, they will tell you that the fight for talent is the biggest challenge for an HR professional. So it was also making sure that we are aligning ourselves with the global standards and making sure that there was congruence and parity across the organization. And we already had foundations in place, but it was to make sure that we apply them across the company so that those foundations were the same. The biggest challenge we were finding as well was that if you had a division that had a person who was seen as a star to go to the next level, if you took the same star and you were now taking them to another division, that other division didn't see it that way. They were like, what is the hype about this guy? We just think that he's mediocre. So it was about saying, how do we assess everyone using the same process, and how do we treat everyone in the same way, so that when we say that this person is the next managing director, we can say that with confidence, irrespective of which division. So it's not a case of, he would be good at this division, why can't he be good at another division? So it was about that consistency. And also making sure that their business is driven by operations and supported by the leadership. Once again, it could not be seen as an HR process. It should be something that the CEO, the managing director, the very senior person in the department owns. There should be the person that goes to their junior managers underneath them and say, what is your talent? What is your pool like? Is it deep enough? If you were to leave tomorrow, have you developed someone that could take over? Because that is what I expect from you. That is what sustainability is all about. So what are you doing in that field? So holding line managers accountable rather than asking that question from human resources. And then of course, the EXCO buy-in was critical and very important in terms of the support. Okay, the biggest thing also for us was to make sure that as human resources, we don't lose track of the fact that we exist in the business because of key objectives. So it was about how do we as a human resources team take this strategy, this is our one-page strategy summary, how do we take this strategy and use it to guide our talent strategy, rather than having a talent strategy that is sitting on the side and not talking to this. So if you look at our values, which I've already spoken about, our vision being to become the first choice brands in the communities that we serve. And then of course, underlying this, being the stakeholder returns, the importance of that, and the sustainable system in our society and in our environment. And we're very clear that in terms of our outcomes, we wanted to achieve world-class replenishment systems, competitive pricing, comprehensive range for our stores, world-class brands in terms of our different formats, whether it's a quick spa, Tops, or super spa, and having the best retailers, and making sure that we are growing by having made provision for new business plans. Now, with that in mind, as an HR team, we had to say, if these are the kind of things that are making EXCO and the board not sleep at night, how do we as human resources support these things? So as human resources, our talent strategy had to talk to these issues. So that needed to be the starting point, rather than us coming with a talent strategy before this. So we couldn't do that. So this had to be in place first, and we then had to put it apart and say, how do we support that? And then of course, it also forced us as the HR team to change the conversations that we have with line. So when you're going to speak to a logistics director, it's about talk to something that is on the strategy, something that keeps him awake at night, that is key for him, and start the talent conversation in that way. And then of course our imperatives being excellence in fresh, which is clearly a training function, making sure that our stores are trained and so on. So each and every one of these aspects we had to take into account and say, how do we then drive this through our talent strategy? So do we have people that can drive fresh in our organization? Do we have people that can drive a supply chain optimization? So it was about using this to say, where are the gaps in our reality? So who do we have already in our pipeline, and how deep is the pipeline, and where are the issues that need to be addressed immediately? And then of course, being the center of the community. And that's something that excites me, because every time I listen to a presentation, and it doesn't matter which spa country presents, SPAR is definitely a center of the community that they serve. And we are very proud in South Africa that it's very true of SPAR than it is true of our competitors. I'll give you an example. One of our competitors is, let's say, ShopRite or Pick n Pay. When you ask a consumer, where are you going? They will say, I'm going to my SPAR. They will never ever say, I'm going to my Pick n Pay. It just doesn't happen. And I think it's because of the roots of SPAR, in a sense that we started as these small corner stores that the community felt belonged to them. So it's my SPAR, it's my this. So we've capitalized on being the center of the community, with the retailer getting involved intimately within his area. So that is something that we have built on as a strength. And then, of course, something that is possibly uniquely South African, being a transformation with our history, we have legislation that compels us to address some of the imbalances of the past. And with that in mind, we have to also say our talent strategy has got to talk to that. You know, there are requirements in terms of the government. So how do we make sure that we are addressing that? And of course, it's not just only about compliance, it's also about the reality. You know, if you look at the demographics of our country, you just have to look at the majority of our staff to realize that if we don't develop the people in these markets, then we're going to have a serious shortage of skills because they're not going to exist anywhere else. So it's about who do we have and what can we make sure to accelerate their development in order to transform. Okay, so I just wanted to show you our one-page strategy, which is what informed our talent strategy. Right, the next one is, if you look at our staff, our human capital, the researchers are telling us that the next frontier for exponential growth, whether it's for an individual in his or her career, or for a team or an entire organization, is in the area of human connectivity. And this is really our only sustainable competitive edge right now. And that's what Susan Scott is saying, and I believe that. Because if you think about it, if you think of the technology or any invention that you as a company can come up with, it's copied within 30 minutes, 15 minutes. You could just come up with something within 20 minutes. Someone who's clever, who's very knowledgeable in that environment, might have copied you even before you finish your presentation. Someone else at the back could already have copied that. Oh, yeah. But the one, like it. But the one thing that you cannot achieve is that your people cannot be copied. Even if you've got the most productive, progressive person that your competitors want to poach, and if they do succeed to poach that person, if they bring that person into their new environment, guess what? They are not going to be effective. And the reason for that is that as human beings, we react to our environment. We are affected by the environment. So if our environment is not conducive to us being productive, we withdraw. We get disappointed. So that one person who left you as a high performer here, when they get to the competition, they will actually be sinking down because everyone is pulling them down. That environment is not ready for them. So your staff can be that competitive edge that your competition cannot copy you. They can come to your store on a look and learn and see how your staff smile. But what they don't understand is, why are your staff smiling? They are smiling because of how you are treating them. They are smiling because of the processes in place and so on. So we can use talent to become the next competitive edge for ourselves. I like these two quotes still by Susan. The world is changing. No matter what any of us is shopping for, we can find good products, good services, and good solutions. We want to enjoy the experience of using those products and those services. So this firm doesn't have a knock-on brilliance. Your prospective clients can find it elsewhere. They want to enjoy the experience of implementing a brilliant solution in partnership with the people who brought it to them. So I think it was Mary who was talking about that. We are in the business of selling baked beans. but you can buy baked beans anywhere else. So consumers come to our stores because of the experience that they get when they are at our stores. So how do we make sure that our staff become that for our consumers? That a person goes to your store knowing that your price is not the cheapest, but they are going there because they just love that cashier at the till. They just love that service manager. They just love the quality of your butchery offering and the service that goes with it and the advice and so on. And that is the key to what we're trying to achieve here. And then of course, this was about changing the way things have been happening and moving really into the center stage of human resources being a strategic partner. Because I think we've already mastered the admin. People get paid every month. We give letters of appointment, we recruit. Those are givens. They are kind of like bread and butter issues. So it was about taking human resources to another level as a strategic partner and really making sure that as human resources, we are occupying the right seat at the board table. So we've spoken about transformation. Succession is another one for us. For instance, I think everyone is feeling the same situation in that the baby boomers in our business, the people that are in their 60s, that are really driven the business for years, they are getting closer to retirement. To give you an example, in our ExCo of about 16 of us, in the next 3 to 5 years, there are going to be 6 people that are going to be exiting our business. Now I'm talking about senior people, ranging from our CEO, our former CEO, the FD, the retail ops directors. So people that come with a lot of experience. So you can see the gap that will be left when we get to that point. And that is why for us it was very important to make sure that we identify that and say, knowing what we know, that these guys are going to be exiting. So how do we make sure that we prepare for that process? Who's going to step in? And how big is their performance gap? What should we do now to equip that person so that when they take over, they hit the ground running? And that is key for us. And then of course, talent retention. The grass is always green on the other side. So how do we make sure that our staff are engaged? How do we make sure that in the unlikely event that they do leave us, guess what? Within 2 months after being on the other side, they realize that actually home is far. Because when they do realize it, and they come back humbled and appreciative of the fact that I thought the grass was greener, but this is where I belong. So it was really making sure that we don't lose people, and we make sure that people understand that. So many times when we deal with exit interviews, and the person says, the reason why I left was because I wasn't sure whether I was being treasured and whether I was going anyway. And at that point we say, but we had such a great career path for you. But if the person didn't know about the career path, that is the reason why they're leaving. So how good are we in having those conversations of saying, stay with us. There is a future in staying here. Obviously, no promises. It's all based on your performance, being in the right spot at the right time, but we think you are doing a great job. And then, of course, the retention of organizational learning. I've alluded to the fact that the bulk of our ExCo will actually be leaving. With that in mind, we're talking about people that have had 30 years of service, some even more than that. A lot of the knowledge resides in their brains. So it's not something you can find in a file. So how do we make sure that that organizational knowledge is retained somewhere? How do we pass the baton to the next person? And then improving the leadership support to the retailers. You know, we're saying one of our strategic imperatives was best retailers. How do we make sure that we as the divisions, we give excellent leadership to the retailers? Because what we gave them 40 years ago is not what they want now. They're wanting something that takes them to the next level. We are constantly revamping our stores. We are constantly revamping our training materials. So even the retailer is revamping what he expects from the division. So what you gave them 20 years ago is not what they are looking for. They are wanting a retail operations manager that will come to the store and add value. So people as a competitive advantage would define the customer experience at the center of community. Really getting to the point I was talking about. Customers going to your store because of the stuff there rather than because of the products and the prices. And then of course, this might sound like it was easy. It wasn't easy. I mean, Raymond, you're getting there. I'm sure you're also dealing with a lot of these things. We had a lot of stumbling blocks from our side. We are still facing some of them as well, but we are dealing with them as we go along. So for instance, there were people regionally who were saying, but it's working here, why are we fixing it? To people from EBSCO saying, why do we now need to assess people? You know, if a guy has been in the job for 15 years, why must we now start assessing them? And really explaining to them to say, the only reason you would know if something is taller than something is because you are using the same measuring equipment. So if you are using a ruler, then it's consistent. If you are using a ruler and a scale, then how can you say this one is taller than this one when you are using two different types of equipment? And then of course, regions wanting to do their own things. We made sure that there was flexibility. So what we did was, we set the minimum requirements. We set at a group level. These must be in place. If your division wants to do something over and above what we've already put together, oh, but of course, go for it. Because we want them to still feel that we are an individual division. There's a lot of competition that happens between our DCs, and we certainly don't want to take that away. So if they want to add something to the toolkit, why not? So we were just making sure that there is that flexibility. And that thing was the reason why we ended up getting the buy-in, because they understood that we were not trying to kill the creativity. You can still do your own thing within your DC. So we had to build a framework. It was quite a time-consuming process, but it was important that we went to the divisions, understood what was in place, what was working, what were they proud of, and what could we learn from them? Because that made sure that the process became ours rather than central office's process. Okay, and of course there was the fear of, I don't understand. If you take a person that's been in a position for 10 years and you are now saying, we need to assess you. Hey, I don't understand this. Why am I being assessed? Is my job on the line here? Are you not happy with my performance? You know, we are creatures of comfort. We love what we are comfortable with. So it was about making sure that people understood why we were doing things. And of course, to move towards a values-based organization. And the biggest challenge also was, often, because we are busy, we don't talk to each other. You know, I just run with things, I do things my way. And the next thing, you hear someone else saying, I've just engaged a consultant to do this. And you say, but that division did it. Why are you reinventing the wheel? Because we don't have time to talk to each other. And it was some of the challenges that we were facing. And of course, I spoke about the fact that you would have a star within a region. Now, there wasn't a group database. So that star was just a star in that division. No one else knew about that star. And of course, people that we are, we tend to keep good information to ourselves. So managers were actually keeping those stars very quiet. Why would you want to brag about your best retail ops person if the other division will now come and take them? Because then it means that you've lost them. So it was making sure that we move from that silo when it came to data to a group HR database. And then of course, that led us to getting some stepping stone, where we had a framework. We've put formal processes in place to support this. And we have a number of formalized talent initiatives that are aimed at driving the talent strategy. So for instance, our leadership development processes are really a way of driving this. So the big question is, if we are trying to get the list for the next intake, the biggest thing we do is we would do a talent review at Exco. And based on that, we would say, priority-wise, who should be the guys that go on these programs? So immediately those training interventions are talking to our talent strategy, rather than in the past, where a manager who possibly had a subordinate who was always complaining and not satisfied. So maybe to shut him up, let's send him on this course for 18 months. So we've now moved away from that orientation to say, when a person gets a seat on that leadership development, it's because they have got something to deliver for the organization. There is a purpose as to why we are choosing them. And then, of course, the full buy-in at EXCO level and within the HR regions, making sure that it wasn't now seen as my division, it was the group talent. So as much as I might have a star, it was about saying, rather than losing them to Pick n Pay, I'd rather have them go to Western Cape or go to KZN, because then they are still being kept engaged within the company. And then, of course, the conversations now started happening. Okay, so just in terms of our strategy, a number of building blocks that I want to talk to you about. I've already spoken about the talent. We've got an initiative that is called Standing on the Shoulders of the Giants. And it's facilitated by an external provider, but it takes a group of managers and their subordinates and talks about what has worked in their department, what has worked in the organization. Because at times, we do not step back and appreciate the value that other people have brought into the performance of the organization or of the department. So it was about that recognition that whatever we've achieved today, it's as a result of what other people have put in the past. So how do we make sure that we get knowledge and information from people that came before us? So it could be that one person at a very junior level, but if that person was the best customer service rep you've got, that is a giant in that field. So how do you make sure that that person is used to assist other people who are in the customer service field? So really recognizing a person for the unique contribution that they bring to the organization. We also then had to develop our leadership capabilities. The biggest question we always asked was to say, if I'm supposed to move from a junior manager to a middle manager, what do I need to do? I already have the technical qualifications and so on. What is it that why am I not getting a job every time I apply for a position? Where's the gap? So we put together this document that defines those leadership capabilities. So it differentiates to say, when you are at this level, if you need to make the next leap to the next level, what are those new competences that you need to acquire? Or at times they might not be new, but they need to be at a different notch compared to where you've been operating. And that is what that document is all about. And of course, if any one of you is interested in seeing what they look like, when I get back home, I could always email them to Yuta to then send to everyone else. Okay. We then also focused on coaching. Those of you that were in South Africa last year, you'd remember that my colleague at Disenzo spoke about how they use coaching at North Rand to address business issues. So we had to take coaching away from being called the soft thing that happens in human resources when someone is not performing or when someone is frustrated. Let's send them to human resources to get them a coach. So we needed to take coaching and make it a business process, a business imperative. So Disenzo last year shared how they took North Rand and the challenges and the business challenges they were facing at that point in time. And by introducing a coaching intervention for their senior team, they were addressing business issues. So all of a sudden, coaching is moving away from the soft, fuzzy process to a business imperative. So we needed to position coaching so that it was understood. And how we achieved this was that we were fortunate in that within our exec team, we've got older MDs and we've got young managing directors. So the younger managing directors had been through the coaching process. So therefore, we're able to testify at the EXCO table to say, hey guys, be careful. Coaching is not just about the warm fuzzy feeling. Coaching, you can coach someone for performance. And coaching need not be about a person who's battling. Maybe it's about what the gentleman was speaking yesterday about. that you don't coach someone because they're battling. You're coaching someone because they are at this level. So how do I even up your performance to the next level? So, and I think that's what we've managed to achieve through getting the right message that coaching is a strategic business process. And then, of course, we have what is called hashtag Wisdom at Spark. I'll tell you more about it on the next slide. And then, of course, the assessment feedback. I think so many of us have in the past been subjected to some form of assessment. And I think the one thing that we can all remember is how well or how badly the person that was giving you feedback did that. And if it was badly done, every time someone spoke about assessment, you cringed because you thought of that experience. But on the other hand, if that was a good experience, you know, when someone mentioned that, your face lit up because it was a positive experience. So we had to move away from the assessment legacy of the past, where assessment was the stick. We brought in assessment partners so that when they assess a person, the feedback that they get is holistic. And I can only give you an example. We had a position in our KZN division, which was highly contested for a divisional marketing director. We had 2 candidates. You literally could have flipped a coin and taken any one of them. But, you know, we now needed to make a choice to say, who is the best fit? And of course, there were a lot of speculation as to who was going to get that position. So we brought in an expert who took lots and lots of time to assess the 2 individuals. And then presented us with feedback as management to say, you know what? The guys technically can both do the job. But if we are looking at a person that could strategically do a better job, the agility to adapt, the ability to implement strategy, this is your man. Now, this was backed by data rather than, oh, it's a hunch. There's just something about this guy I like him. And you ask the manager and you say, just elaborate on it. It's just something about this person. Like, what is that something about this person? Tell me. And no one could tell you what it was. So, for the first time, we had data that could support our decision. So, the person that didn't get the job, normally in the past, would have been very upset. When they were called in and given the debrief in terms of, this is where you possibly fell short, these are the areas of opportunities for you going forward, we need to focus on this. The person phoned and said, listen, thank you. For the first time management, someone has taken time to understand and give me feedback that is constructive. We're now helping that person to say, how do we close that gap? So that next time is an opportunity. So making sure that assessment is done properly and the right person giving the feedback is very important. And then, of course, another aspect of our talent strategy are what we call stay interviews. Because I spoke about it earlier on, that when you talk about a person that's already living, they're already 1 foot at the door and saying, cheers, I'm no longer interested. So they are telling you what they are wanting you to have had many years ago. So you've missed that opportunity. And a stay interview is a fantastic opportunity because it's calling a person who is performing and saying, let's talk. What would it take for me to keep you interested in this company? You know, all things being equal, we know that you are being paid above the market. We know that we are training you. We know that we are engaging you in other assignments. In addition to all of this, what would it take for you to stay with this company? Because that's an opportunity to invite the person. Because at times we think we know what is good for the person. But do we really? It's when you engage with that person who says, you know what? I've always wanted to be exposed to logistics. Oh, really? Wow, that's actually good. So next time there is a project, we will make sure that you are part of that multifunctional team. There you are. You've now addressed a person's requirement of being exposed to other areas. It could be about seconding that person to that department or putting together a development program that says, you know what, you are doing a good job where you are. So what about we say 4 hours a week? you're going to then go and work in logistics. Let's put together a structured program so that you can start acquiring those skills. All of a sudden, that person that might have been interested in going elsewhere is saying, I'm not going anywhere because my company listened to me and they are assisting me get to where I want to go. And then, of course, the leadership capabilities model that I spoke about is focused on how do I get on with others, because we operate in teams. And how do I do things in the environment that I'm working in? And who am I as an individual? Because how can I lead others when I cannot lead myself? And of course, if I am a leader, how do I lead other people that I'm working with? Okay. Then, of course, looking at the institutional learning, I spoke about the fact that we've got people that are going to be leaving us soon. So what we have started with this process is to acknowledge who those people are and have a structured process that says, Trevor Curry, you are a logistics expert. We know that in 3 or 4 years' time, you're going to be exiting the business. So how do we make sure that we start in the next 3 years, currently until 3 years when you retire, how do we make sure that you share the best practice? How do we make sure that we've got this excellence that you own being spread amongst the logistics team? And that has resulted in conversations. We are piloting it in logistics, for instance, where the logistics team are looking at what are those skills that are key for this business. What should we make sure we don't lose? What should we actually make sure that we lose? Because they are the guys that have been around for 20, 30 years. So they should also guide us and say, guys, we made those mistakes and we learned from them. If I were in your shoes, I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't do that. So what is that knowledge, that wisdom that would disappear with them if we don't have a proper process? So these interventions are going to be facilitated and documented to make sure that it's kind of like they are passing the baton to the next generation. As they are preparing to exit, all the information, the history, why we did things the way we did them, is not lost as they leave the organization. And that is what that process is all about. And then, of course, finally, this is our framework. This is what we came up with. So, speaking to the divisions, understanding what they were doing, and taking their best practices, we put together a toolkit. So this is what our toolkit looks like. So the talent assessment process would be handled by, let's say at a divisional level, by the managing director, the HR, and the line managers. Obviously at a group level, we still do it as EXCO. And that process will also then be about defining the roles. We've got job profiles for each position. Also then differentiating between the roles. What is key, what is core, and what are those retention positions? Because in every business that you've got, you will always have a person, maybe who's not senior enough, but that skill that they possess is key. It could be your butchery specialist. It could be that one person that is just so good in understanding meat. Maybe they are not a manager, but how do we make sure that we retain that person? So if that is a retention role, how do we retain that person? And then, of course, the planning and the assessment, identifying the talent. It was also about looking forward. In 10 years' time from now, what is this business going to look like? What kind of talent are we going to look for? And with that in mind, what do we have? Let's take stock of what we've got. And what do we need to put in place now so that in 4 or 5 years' time, that talent is already growing? And of course, I've spoken about the assessing of the incumbents. Performance management still being very important, making sure that line managers are having genuine and authentic conversations. You know, if a person is doing a good job, mean it. If they are not doing a good job, also mean it. And that is quite a difficult conversation to have. But it was teaching our managers to have real conversations, because it's pointless if a manager sugarcoats the feedback because the person doesn't get the message. Then, of course, the assessment, These are the tools that we are using. I spoke about the fact that the toolkit is the basic requirement. If the division wanted to use anything over and above this, of course they could always do that. So this would be the battery of tests that we subject all those people that are going to get into our talent pipeline, so that we are making sure that we are using the same measuring equipment. When we say this person is the next managing director, we have checked them against the same standard as everyone else. So it's not subjective, so taking away that subjectivity. And then of course, accounting for talent as EXCO. Twice a year, we will sit around the table and say, who do we have at different levels? Who takes over after you, Tubi? Who takes over after you, Brad? Who takes over after you, Mark? In the event that something were to happen to you, because that's a reality. And having those discussions, very robust discussions, so much so that some names that were on the list were removed, and some names that were not on the list were added. And making sure that once we have done that, we put in place development plans. So if we're saying a person must acquire these skills, today is the time to start letting that person acquire those skills. Because if we don't do it, in a year's time when the same position comes up, we will be saying, they're not there yet. But we knew this a year ago. And then of course, talent accounting. Looking at the succession plans and what is the replacement plan, because we understand that as much as we will develop people internally, there will be times when we say, let's go outside and find talent. And I'll use an example. Our CEO, who is a chartered accountant, feels very strongly that we're very weak when it comes to chartered accountants. So he said, we need to go out there and find chartered accountants so that there is a pipeline of these CAs. And then, of course, the talent development. Line managers, once again, because they are the owners of this process and not human resources, making sure that development interventions are happening, mentoring and coaching, and